Good evening. MA Philosophy, MPY 001, Block number 2, Unit number 2, Buddhism 1, Objectives. This unit tries to make the students acquainted with the basic philosophical position of Buddhism in general. It enables them also to make comparative studies and answer the criticism raised by rival system as they expose the basic tenets of the system under survey. In this unit, we will give the historical setting of Buddha, his teachings, its metaphysical presuppositions, and its far-reaching implications. Introduction: in the history of the world, 8th century BC to 1st century AD is known as Axial Era, a period of great spiritual quest where we get almost all lasting answers to life's perennial questions. India gave her contribution to the genuine thoughts of axial era in the form of Upanishadic inquiry, religions of Jainism and Buddhism, and all over systems of thought. We generally divide them as orthodox and heterodox contributions. Buddha is one fine product of this era as a new pathfinder. From him comes a religio-philosophical system which is a whole in itself with its diverse developments and spread in course of time. Every person will be influenced by his age, but what will influence him and how depends on his sensitivities too. Buddha was a very sensitive man. The story of foresight that made him a wanderer, old man, disease, dead body, and recluse bears witness to this. We also see these sights, but they are like speck of dust fallen on hand. In the case of Buddha, they were like speck of dust fallen on eye, which is very sensitive and could not rest at ease until a solution was reached. They worked like immediate catalyst that caused an awareness of the basic realities of life. What do these four sights symbolizes? The first three, old man, deceased man, and dead body, speak about the common plight of human beings. This brings Buddha to the first noble truth, Sarvam Dukkham. Recluse or state of being a renouncer was the way of that age for dedicating oneself for full-time inquiry. Thus he leaves his palace and throne and begins his search for the reasons and remedies for the plight of men. Buddha, due to his sensitivity, looked into solutions that were available at this time. After taking the life of a wanderer, many learned he visited many learned and rigorous practicing aesthetics, but he was not satisfied fully with any of them. After 6 years of search, he came to his own discipline, which he called middle way and dharma. Middle way for him is rejection of extremes, be it rejection of extreme austerity or extreme indulgence in worldly pleasures. In his practical life or rejection of eternalism of Upanishads, there is one unchanging permanent principle, or nihilism of Charvaka. There is no permanent unchanging principle. Life ends with physical death. Thus, for his teachings, the philosophical foundation becomes a new position that he reached through his enlightenment. This middle way is the theory of dependent origination, that everything is conditional, momentary, and without essence. When one forgets this and considers something as unconditional, eternal, and with essence, then suffering begins. This was a radical finding which begins with basic position which is opposite to the one that was accepted at that time. Let us be aware of complications in understanding that Buddha actually taught. Historically, he is so remote and he did not write down anything. He taught orally for 45 years and his teaching fell on the ears of people from various cultures and traditions. So for his part, he must have adapted himself to their culture. Pare, Paryada, and from the hearers' part, they got only according to their capacity of reception. Adhikari Bhed. He taught in the language of ordinary people, and there were many, and the philosophical language was Sanskrit. In all these languages, the disciples of Buddha later recorded his words. Buddha was a teacher who taught, "Be light unto thyself." Atta Deepo Bhava. It means do not take anything true without your rational scrutiny. He also repudiated human authority as the final word in his society of monks, Sangha, and taught, let the Dharma be your guide, no human authority. All these caused lot of practical disciplinary problems, and so many teachings came up as Buddha's teaching. Thus the need for a canon came up, and 30 years after Buddha's parinirvan that the first council was conducted. Within the century, in the next council, strong disagreements between traditionalist Theravadins and progressivist Mahasanghikas came up. Human emotional imbalance in the form of putting down and condemning the other as low and vile heen happened in the course of time. These all contributed to the growth of sects and subsects and many schools and many canons. Today we have Pali canon, Chinese canon, Tibetan canon, and Sanskrit canon with their own special emphasis. To the question which among there is really Buddha's teaching, Buddha Vachana. Nobody dared to negate the other canon, rather emphasize their own among others. All these are Buddha Vachanas, but this is his. The teaching is the trend of Buddhist sects. So each one will present Buddha's teaching from his angle. This doesn't mean that they all disagree in everything. In some basic teachings, they all agree. They are the practical teachings of Buddha, the Four Noble Truths, no soul theory, conditioned origination, and the law of impermanence. To these basics, each sect adds its own special emphasis as Buddha Vachan. We didn't go into a special emphasis of sects in this unit, but we only expose those teachings that normally are agree as a real Buddha teaching. In unit Buddhism 2, we will discuss some distinguishing marks of some schools. This unit is divided into two parts. First is the most known teaching of Buddha, Four Noble Truths, which is very much practical through deep understanding of it, exposes metaphysical presupposition. In the second part, we will expose metaphysical presuppositions, but watertight compartmentalization is not possible, for they go together always. Thus, sudden will see repetitions in both parts. This is unavoidable as they always go together. This separation is for clarity's sake only. Four Noble Truths. Everyone who accepts Buddha agrees on one thing, that his basic teaching is Four Noble Truths. Chare, Chatvari Arya Satyani. They are Sarvam Dukkham, Dukkha Samudaya, Dukkha Nirodh Marg. This is actually ethico-religious teachings. This is exposed in the first discourse of Dhammacakra Sutta. All agree that Buddha was against hair splitting, metaphysical speculations that are useless from the perspective of life's goal. He has a classical smile to explain it. He says, if a man is struck by poisonous arrow and is in immediate need of medication, but says, I will not allow you to remove this arrow and put medication until I know who shot this arrow, what is made of, how far away he was standing, what type of bow he used, etc. Then, by the time you collect all answers, the man will die. Thus, these answers are useless at the moment. The fact is in front of us, and the means of for saving his life to let us do it. Buddha was taken up by the plight of humans. He named it Dukkham Sarvam, Dukkham, suffering, such the cause of it, and presented remedies like the doctor who diagnosed disease and prescribed medicine for cure. The goal is religious, as life without suffering is a stage beyond this present life situation, and the means are purely ethical and meditational. Only difference in this matter between him and the other religious thinkers was rejection of metaphysical speculations, be it on God or soul or the beginning or end of life, etc. Buddha saw it was not only useless but also detrimental to remove suffering. According to Buddha, suffering is caused by ignorance, and this ignorance is ignorance about real nature of reality, which is anatma, anitya, and dukkha. This ignorance causes attachment, craving, and all its evil effects. The goal for us is removal of this ignorance by removing attachment and craving. That is termed as nirvana, and the means for this is pragya, seal, and samadhi, awareness, moral percepts, and meditation. They are elaborated into noble eightfold path. Sarvam Dukkham, everything is suffering. Indian philosophy in general begins at the realization of this human predicament, the unfortunate existential situation in which one finds oneself, that his life is brutish and short. It begets frustration, unhappiness, and pain. Some scriptures say life is a value of tears, vanity of vanities. Everything is vanity. This is a pessimistic way of looking at life. Buddha also shares in it. According to him, birth is suffering, old age is suffering, sickness is suffering, death is suffering. To be united with what is unpleasant is suffering. If one wants something and does not get it, that also is suffering. In brief, the life as we see it is suffering. It is the aggregate of five skandhas with thirst for existence and clinging. If we ask the question why it is suffering, we must say it is suffering because it is impermanent. Though this initial pessimism is there in Buddha, it does not make him inactive, rather, it energizes him to search for answers. One general answer was already there in the form of the law of karma. The source of this unfortunate situation is of own making. It is our own deed that breed the karmic reside, which is stored up and activated later and make our life like this. And the future will be conditioned by the present deeds. The situation is called karmic cycle samskar. Buddha shared in this worldview, and within this context arrived at his enlightenment, having been dissatisfied of the already given explanations, and he proposes his own. If we ask the question, what was Buddha's enlightenment, we must say it was the realization Sarvam Dukkham. Ordinary men at the time speak of life as well of tears in the next moment, strives for pleasures and cling to some soul. Even when he fails to attain pleasure, he is under the impulse, the thirst for pleasure and appeasing of soul. For the ordinary man, things are not consistently impermanent. The distinction of Buddha is that for him, even those strivings for pleasure and painful and the attainment of the so-called pleasures too. Clinging to a permanent soul is the root delusion. Thus, everything is pain, and this realization is the first criteria for enlightenment. Thus, this is the first noble truth, and this realization is the first criteria for following Buddha way. One who realizes constantly that everything is suffering, he will strive with the whole heart to end it. In order to end it, first he must know how to originate and how it can be removed. An expert doctor will not only consider the symptoms of disease but also will count out the root cause of it, and in order to root it out. Buddha did the same. If every action leads to suffering, can be escape from suffering by desisting from action. Here comes Buddha's moral consciousness that it is not action that is important but the attitude behind it. Action before being done externally happens internally or in the mind. As every action has its cause and brings out its fruit, every mental action too has its cause and effect. This cause effect examination of all actions within the person through a psychological analysis is his second noble truth. Dukkha Samudaya, cause of suffering. Second noble truth says our suffering has a cause. That which is caused can come to an end, and if the causal condition is removed, something that is uncaused cannot be removed. This is the foundation of Buddha's rejection of Upanishadic in uncaused and permanent soul. Thus, the second noble truth is the message of hope that comes from Buddha. Since bondage is caused, there is possibility of removing it by controlling cause and eventually eliminating them. What is it that causes suffering? In the first sermon at Benares, Dharmachakra Pravartana Sutta, Buddha said it is the thirst, Trishna, that lead to rebirth, which is accompanied by delight and passion. Later, his thought is further elaborated as aroused by sense object, Kama, Kama Trishna, and it is directed towards one's worldly existence. Bhavatrishna. When sense come in contact with their objects, sensations arise and these awaken desires. In this way, the so-called thirst for objects of desire, Kama Trishna, arises. The second type of Trishna arises when one takes worldly personality. Five is Kandas and the self Atma and cling to it. This is the ignorance that entangles one in the cycle of existence. When all these join it together in cause effect chain, dependent origination, pratitya samutpad. The famous theory of 12 spoke of Bhavachakra of Buddhism originated. They explain it both in forward order and reverse order. Let us see the 12 member chain of causes and effect. Ignorance, avidya, impression, samskar, initial consciousness in the embryo, vijna, vijnana, mind body embryonic organism, nama rupa, the sixth field, the five senses and the mind together with their objects, sadayatana, shadayatana, contact between senses and the objects, sparsa, sparsa, sense existence, vedanta, vedana, a strong desire, trishna, clinging to existence, upadan, will be born, bhava, rebirth, jati, pain, old age and death, jara, maran. In the general presentation of cause of suffering in the 12-membered chain of cause and effect, the root cause of entanglement in causal chain is ignorance, which is the absence of liberating cognition. The four noble truths in such a person craving for worldly objects and worldly personality come into being: kama trishna and bhava trishna. The impressions that are like a subtle body is the bearer of rebirth. It enters into a new form after death, driven by these impressions. This necessitates formation of body, mind, organism, and in turn the formation of senses and mind as six organ of cognition. Due to that, contact with objects occur, and that causes sensations of various kinds, leading to the passions, rag, dvesh, and moh. Foremost being the thirst that cling to sense pleasure and to the supposed self that grasp them, thereby leading to renewed bondage and new existence. Once again, birth and entanglement. Once again, birth and entanglement in the suffering of existence come out, and so it goes in the endless chain till the liberating cognition and annihilation of thirst put an end to the cycle of existence. When one strike at the root of this endless chain by removing the basic ignorance, which is the wrong view of Atma, permanence and pleasure, one prepares the way for third noble truth. Dukkha Nirod, cessation of suffering. It is the third noble truth that about cessation of suffering, nirvana. Negatively, if we speak of nirvana, it is cessation of all suffering, annihilation of all that binds, complete vanishing of thirst, abandoning of all afflictions, upadhi. Positively, it is attainment of freedom. The question is freedom from what and freedom to what. Nirvana is the freedom from all the three types of acts that bind mental, vocal, and physical. This can happen only when one's action do not create craving, raga, aversion, dvesha, and delusion, moh. Again, nirvana is a freedom to a life with full of goodwill, metta, compassion, karuna, sympathetic appreciation, mudita, and equanimity, upekha. Its outward expressions include politeness, good manner, cleanliness of habits, and the like. Buddha himself stands as a beacon with his personality. Buddha, when he started teaching, was a man of harmonious, self-contained personality with great magnetism. This comes from self-confidence resulting from his enlightenment, the attainment of the right view. This is liberation. He had a contemplative temperament and kind-heartedness towards all mankind, even towards one who came to kill him. The majesty of his appearance and His courtesy towards people even of lower status and his noble manners converted many, even Angulimal, and impressed even those who rejected his teachings. His teaching. What is the nature of nirvana? If we take it as the permanent state after death, it is the controversial issue. For Buddhism teaches anatma and anitya. If no permanent agent is agent to ignore to experience freedom, then who attains liberation? Or what will be after right view dawned and aggregate of skandhas are no more, which we normally call death. Rightly, Buddha kept these questions in the inexpressible uh, avya- avyakartas, for they are beyond our categories of linguistic expression. Later, school explained it in their own way. Dukh Nirod Marg, path for cessation of suffering. Number one, right view, Samyak Drishti. Number two, right conception, Samyak Sankalp. Right speech, Samyak Vak. Number four, right conduct, Samyak Karmant. Number five, right livelihood, Samyak Ajiv. Number six, right effort, Samyak Vyayam. Number seven, right mindfulness, Samyak Smriti. Number eight, right concentration, Samyak Samadhi. Right view, Samyak Drishti. Right view here refers to comprehensive understanding. Its opposite, wrong view, then refers to one-sided or expressively bent to one extreme, be it about self or about world, and that is the root cause of suffering. Thus, if we want to be free from suffering, we must come out of our one-sidedness. Buddha came out of both extreme of uh, it is Saswatavad and it is not uh, Uchedavad. He gave the truth as middle way, which is the right view, claims his disciples. This truth is exposed in the form of four noble truths and their presuppositions, which are dependent, originating as becoming pratitya samutpad, no permanent soul, atma, and a law of impermanence, anitya. Number second, right conception, samyak sankalp. Right conception is the decision in the mind of what is to be practically followed. As far as practice is concerned, the right view remains impractical. For it doesn't become part of the active mind. It is duty of right conception to make mind active in that way. If that is not there, a wrong conception may carry the mind way. Wrong conception are associated with lust, kama sankalp, a conception of ill will, uh, Vyapada Sankalp, and a conception of harm, Vihimsa Sankalp. The right conception are conceptions of renunciation, Nishkam Sankalp, conception of goodwill, Abhyapad Sankalp and Abhayapad Sankalp, and conception of compassion, Ahimsa Sankalp. Number third, right speech, Samyak Vak. When right view and right conception start to regulate life, they bring qualitative change in the way of speaking, behavior, and lifestyle. Right speech is that speech which does not consist of lies, gossip, abuse, and idle talk. This rule asks for restraint of speech and practice of virtues with one's speech. Number four, right conduct, Samyak Karmant. This noble truth asks the practitioners sadhaka to abstain from wrong actions. This contains famous Panchashila, the five vows of of desisting from killing, stealing, sensuality, lying, and intoxication. Killing refers to destruction of the life of any being. He who takes away life or in away life or instigate another to do so is guilty of this crime. Stealing is taking away of that which is not given. Sensuality or adultery is the holding of carnal intercourse with the females that belongs to another. Lying is one among the four sins of speech. Other are slander, abuse, and unprofitable conversation. Intoxication refers to intentional drinking of any liquor. This is forbidden because it is the root cause of all other sins. For liquor takes away the rationality and morality of the one who is under grip of liquor, and he commits all type of sins. Right livelihood. Samyak Ajiva. Right livelihood refers to earning one's everyday living by honest means. This rule tells the practitioner sadhaka even that even for the sake of maintaining one's life, one should not take to forbidden means, but work in consistency with good determination. Number six, right effort. Samyak Vyayam. Right effort refers to mind control. Mind is the root where all type of tendencies reside, whether they are good or wicked passions. Sometimes undesirable ideas may haunt the mind, and hence mind control is needed. Sins of the mind are covetousness, malice, and skepticism. They need to be controlled. One cannot progress steadily unless he maintains a constant effort to root out old evil evil thoughts and prevent new evil thoughts from arising. Again, since mind cannot be kept empty, he should constantly endeavor to fill the mind with good ideas and retain such ideas in the mind. These four are the right effort, right mindfulness, samyak smriti. This rule further stress constant vigilance, constantly keeping in mind in the good things he has already learned. He should constantly remember and contemplate the body as body, sensations as sensations, mind as mind, mental states and mental states, and contemplate on the frail, loathsome, and perishable nature of things. These help us refrain from these help us remain free from attachment and grief. Right concentration, samyak samadhi. Buddhism speak of four stages of concentration. The first stage is dhyana or meditation on four noble truths. Here mind makes its reasoning and investigation about truth. At the second stage of concentration, there is no reasoning and investigation but an unaffected contemplation. Here still the practitioners enjoy an experience of joy, peace, and internal tranquility. At the third stage, one detaches himself even from joy of concentration. Attitude of indifference increase, is still conscious of the ease and equanimity of he experiences. At the last stage, one puts away even the ease and equanimity and all senses of joy and happiness he earlier had. This is the stage of perfect equanimity, indifference, and self-possession. Here he attains the desired goal of nirvana, the right view in its perfection. Philosophical implications of Buddha's teaching. We know Buddha as an ethical teacher and founder of religion who gave the Eightfold Path. Can one be founder of religion without being a philosopher or without having philosophical ideas as the foundation of these teachings? It is not possible, for religion is molding of life in the light of reality as one sees it, and knowledge of the nature of that reality shapes ideas of life. Thus, philosophy is a presupposition of religion. Sometimes religious teachers will grow from the existing philosophy of all time without questioning it, but Buddha was not satisfied with the philosophy of the times. He questioned the theory of practice of Vedic sacrifice, theory and practice of soul realization, and theory and practice of this life alone holders. He comes to a new vision, accepting the spiritual, accepting morality, but rejecting permanence and soul or substantiality. That which is not permanent breeds suffering. Everything is not permanent, hence sarvam dukkham. His vision springs from awareness of the causal genesis of things and ideas. Pratitya samutpada. Pratitya samutpad, their impermanence and substantiality. Theory of dependent origination, Pratitya Samutpad. This is the central conception of the system of Buddha. This is the Buddhist theory of causation. This explains the nature of existence. He said, leave aside the question of the beginning and end. I will instruct you in the law, dharma of Buddhism. If that is, this come to be on the springing up of that, this springs up. If that is not, this does not come to be on the suggestion of that this ceases. This is the common description of dependent origination. This exposes most salient feature of Buddha's conception of the pupil of dependent origination. There is a temporal relation between the that and this. This is an experiential component, for this refers to the effect that is experienced rather than inferred, and that refers to the cause that has already been experienced. Formulating the principle of dependent origination in this manner, the Buddha attempts to avoid the search for any mysterious any entity or substance in the explanation of phenomena. Avoiding mysterious entity or substance does not mean abandoning all inquiry and go to absolute skepticism. Rather, it represents the acceptance of a middle standpoint, and he calls it the right view. In Ka- Kachayana Gotta Sutta, when question asked about right view, Buddha said, "This world is generally inclined towards two views, existence and non-existence. To him who perceives the right wisdom, the uprising of the world as it has come to be, the notion of non-existence in the world does not occur. To him who perceives with right wisdom, the seizing of the world as it has come to be, the notion of existence in the world does not occur. The world, for the most part, is bound by approach, grasping, and inclination, and he who does not follow the approach and grasping, the determination of the mind, that inclination and disposition, who does not cling to or adhere to a view. This is myself who thinks suffering that is of subject to arising arises. Suffering that is subject to is ceasing ceases. Such a person does not doubt, is not perplexed. That is right view. That leads to deviation. Everything exists in one extreme. Everything does not exist in one other, is the other extreme. Without approaching either extreme, the Tathagata teaches you a doctrine of the middle. Then follows exposition of 12 factors of bhava chakra as causes of suffering. This we already saw in the second noble truth, where he applied this theory to causation, pratitya samutpad, in the origin of suffering. Like that, in other fields too, his disciples apply it. In the field of logic, it is law of identity. Something is not and is not. When it is applied in metaphysics, it becomes theory of momentaneous, everything in constant flux, changing from cause to effect. And when applied in ethics, it becomes law of karma, as every action leaves its effect. The principle of dependent arising is an alternative to the Brahmanical notion of eternal self, Atman, as well as to Charvak rejection of spirituality. As an alternative, Buddha explains phenomena as a state of being in constant arising and ceasing. What is it that arises and ceases? They say dharmas. It does justice to the need of both permanence and change to explain our experience and ethics. Doctrine of universal change or impermanence, Sarvam Anitya. The metaphysical application of law of dependent arising, arrived by investigation and analysis of the empirical, is the doctrine of universal change. All things are combination of dharmas and subject to change and decay. Since they all originate from one condition, it disappears when the condition ceases to be. Whatever has a beginning has an end. Buddha therefore say no, that whatever exists arises from causes and conditions, and and is in every respect impermanent. That which seems everlasting perishes. That which is high will be laid low. Where meeting is, parting will be. Where birth is, death will be. Death will come. This is doctrine of impermanence. When this is brought to its logical conclusion by asking the question how one thing can become another, if it is not continuously changing. If not changing, it will remain as it is. If it remains as it is, it will never change. Combination of the dharmas to become impossible. If there is no change, we cannot explain our experience. Morality cannot be explained. For morality, in order to be meaningful, actions should bear fruit, not fruit without change. If change must be at all moments. If at one moment it is permanent, then it will go on like that forever. The for Buddhism does not accept on an external mover. No soul theory, anatma. For the beginning of human reflection up to now, one prominent theme is soul, but it is known by different names to the primitive man inside him or in any animal that lives and moves. There is a living principle, a man inside a man or an animal inside an animal that we call soul, that is animism. As religion becomes refined, soul concept also becomes refined, but in one form or another. We see it in living religion of Hinduism, Jainism, Christianity, and Islam. They teach a man's personality or self is his soul, known by different names like Atman, Pudgala, Pneuma, or Psyche, which enters body at birth and quits at death. The common element is the invisible immaterial ego, the I that is unchangeable amidst everything that is changing, the lord of the body and mind. Those who hold that there is a soul that exists say, without a soul there could be no immorality. Without immorality, life would be birth living. The existence of a soul alone could ensure to each individual the fruit of his actions. Without soul there could be no reward in heaven or punishment in hell, and without it transmigration could not be explained. And so also we cannot explain differences between man and man in character, position, peculiarities, and fate. For Buddha, such a permanent soul, a permanent self, is the most deceitful of illusions, the basic wrong view that leads man into the pit of sorrow and suffering. In order to be the Buddhist practitioners, first thing that is to be rejected is such a belief in permanent self. The reason given is self naturally produce attachment, and attachment to it lead to egoism, craving for pleasure, and aversion to plane on earth and then beyond in heaven. So search for soul is a wrong start, and wrong start will lead in false direction. Some say that the I endures after death. Others say it perishes. Both have fallen into a grievous error. For if the I is perishable, the fruit people strive for will perish too, and then deliverance will be without merit. If, as the others say, the I does not perish, it must be always identical and unchanging, then moral aims and salvation would be unnecessary. Because of this logical difficulty, Buddha kept that matter in the inexplicable. This silence of Buddha was explained differently by different schools, though all agree soul does not exist. First systematic exposition of that we have in the book The Question of King Menendros, Milinda, Milinda Pancha. Here, Nagsen the monk conceives the king with the example of chariot. There is no permanent personality, but only name and form. The five groups is khandhas which continuously cease and arise anew. Let us sum up. Let us sum up. Buddha, as we see today, is a big forest with such a lot of variety in trees in it. Though the schools and sects keep up their uniqueness, they all claim that they give the master's teaching. Modern times, when a study of Buddhism was rejuvenated in Europe, a fresh scientific inquiry into what is latter and what is the core was taken up. All unanimously agree on the so-called Four Noble Truths, Chatur Arya Satyani, and Buddha's own words, and contains a summary of his teaching and gives theoretical framework of philosophy for Buddhists everywhere. Among these truths, the first, the truth of suffering, is the basis of Buddhist ontology. The second, the truth of origin of suffering, is the basis of Buddhist psychology, or the ontology of the mental. The truth of the cessation of suffering, is the basis of Buddhism as a religion. The fourth, the truth of the path leading to cessation of suffering, is the basis of Buddhism as a moral and meditational practice. All the later developments in any of these fields have this same fundamental heritage, the vision of Buddha. It is presented as Sarvam Dukkham, Sarvam Anatman, and Sarvam Anityam. If we ask the question why everything is suffering, the answer is because it is impermanent. Why it is impermanent? Because it is dependently originated. Why it is dependently originated? The answer is it is like that. We experience it like that. Thank you.